Holocaust Memorial Day. Today she is leading these unique commemorations at the Shalom Hartman Institute. Shalom, Michal, it's great to have you here.
Shalom, shalom, it's a pleasure to be here.
Good. Alongside Michal, we're happy to have with us Rabbi Menachem Bombach. Rabbi Bombach is an ultra-Orthodox entrepreneur. He's the CEO of the ultra-Orthodox education network Netzach. In Netzach, hundreds of Orthodox teens learn core secular studies side by side with religion. In addition, the students maintain dialogue with the general Israeli non-Orthodox society. One of the unique aspects of the yeshiva is the way that students relate to Memorial Day, Yom HaZikaron, for the fallen soldiers. Shalom gam lecha, Rabbi Bombach, it's great to have you here.
Hi, shalom.
The title of the session today is How Do We Tell a Memory? איך מספרים זיכרון? Each one of our distinguished speakers will relate to this topic for 20 minutes, and then we will have some time to ask questions. If you do have questions, please post it in the chat box. We will gather the questions and ask them later. Professor Michal Gvanim, we're going to start with you. The stage is yours for the next 20 minutes.
Hello, Tammy. Hello, everyone. I'm very moved and honored to be with you this evening for that cross-ocean thinking about how do we remember, and really a feeling of Am Echad, of a nation that embraces us with this crucial question that, as Yakir stated it, follows us from before our birth, from our being in the womb already, and the transmission from one generation to the other. And I'll start with this point, and I'm especially moved to be part of this program between the commemoration of the Holocaust and the Independence Day, Yom HaShoah and Yom HaAtzmaut. And it reflects in a way my own parents, my father being a member of the Third Aliyah, who arrived in Palestine in 1921, and one of the founders of Kibbutz Tel Yosef in the Valley of Israel, and a member of the Haganah and all the chapters of the coming to be state. And my mother, who was married in Krakow, graduated there, the Hebrew high school, married and had a child, and in the Holocaust, lost her first husband. And then my brother, my half-brother, Marek, her son, who was sent to the gas chambers in Auschwitz. My parents founded a family in which, these 2 days were the two poles of the transmission in daily life and in events. And I think that they both passed away more than 30 years ago. It was their second marriage, and I was a late child, an only child. Missing them and feeling on my shoulders a belated, I would say, mission to think about how do we remember, especially the Holocaust, after we lose the generation, the dear generation of the dear survivors, to whom we are dedicated to listen to each one of them, to their stories. First of all, in order to honor them, and then also to struggle against the erasement, against the washing out of the memory by the Nazis themselves in the war. How do we, the coming generation, take on ourselves the question to remember after we don't have the witnesses? That was a question that haunted me deeply. And I know that as a writer, I can write novels. As a matter of fact, I'm writing a book about my mother. But I understood that for that mission, it's a task beyond a single person. It's I can compare it, and I'll compare it more in the coming words to writing the Haggadah of Pesach, and we tell in the Haggadah the story of how it was written in Bnei Barak by a group of rabbis who sat there for the whole night. So I understood that it has to be something which is beyond the one voice. It's an event that englobed us, all of us. Those who were caught in the Holocaust, but those who were out of it miraculously, but the decree of death was against them all. Jews from all over the world were singled out as the target for that crazy mission to annihilate the Jewish person, as a prototype of what humankind is. And beyond the Jews were all those who were defined as others. So in a way, we are all survivors of that decree. How do we create a memory that englobes us all? We thought of the memory from a Jewish point of view. And the Jewish memory, is very private. At the Seder Pesach, we say, "Yir'eh kol adam et atzmo ki'ilu hu." Each person should see himself or herself as if she or he came out of Egypt. How to make the memory personal? So we have thought of the Seder as a structure, the Seder of Pesach, where we sit around one table. So we say, maybe we'll make a gathering in which we'll sit together. Each one of us will have the time to tell his story, her memories, her community, his parents, his grandparents. And then we thought, what should be the memory of the Holocaust? What is the root? What is really the center of it? Now, when we think about more than 70 years later, I think it's very interesting to speak about it in English-speaking context, where the word is Holocaust. And we seldom stop to ask what is the meaning of the word Holocaust. And actually the root is a Latin word, which means a sacrifice, a total burned sacrifice. We should think and remember that term Holocaust has been coined in French and then moved to English. It's not like in Hebrew Shoah or in Yiddish Churban, which is destruction, calamity, catastrophe. It's a sacrifice. And I think that here we have two ways of remembering. What do we put in the center? Do we put in the center the martyrdom, the suffering, and immediately the machine of evil and of annihilation that the Nazis put on, and put of that, and the Jewish identity will be that of the victim, of the ultimate victim? Or do we remember the resistance, the spiritual, the armed, the human resistance? If we think and remember that we did not have a state at that time, and the struggle was against babies, about children, old people, they represented the enemy because they were human. And the core way that the Jews faced it, as Rabbi Nissenbaum from the ghetto of Warsaw said, in the Crusades, they wanted to convert us. So the Jews went on Kiddush Hashem, they sacrificed themselves. But here, the enemy wants to take our life. So we have to struggle with all our means for life. So the struggle for life started by keeping the human face, that was the first target of the Nazis to erase. And that was done in many ways, by people who put on tefillin, by those who took arms, by a woman who helped her neighbor in the labor work, by someone who lit candles, by someone who took photographs or wrote a diary, by those who were despaired as an expression of human soul, and those who believed, and those who loved and laughed. So many ways of struggle that I think that in these days, without a comparison, of course, but in these days of a total upheaval of our lives in the corona pandemic, we suddenly see how the struggle to keep your humanity, your spiritual life, the solidarity with the other, thinking beyond yourself is a very deep mode of struggling and of keeping what life is. So in that sense, we said, okay, let's look again at the Jewish memory. The Jewish memory is not a repetition of an event. We don't perform the slavery in Egypt. We don't disguise as slaves that die. No. What stayed from the suffering? A little bit of maror on our plate. The Jewish way of remembering is an active way, is a struggling way. We think in Pesach, what was the reason for the suffering? And that was slavery. So we fight against slavery. We say every Seder, this year we are slaves, next year we will be free. And each Shabbat, we free ourselves from the slavery of work. We have donated that to the world. We, our family, also the stranger beyond us, and even an animal, everyone has to stop from the slavery of work. We have given the world the social laws because you should remember that you were a slave in Egypt. If we learn from that memory, we should ask ourselves, how do we give out the memory of the struggling for the human face and the human honor as a memory of the Shoah, not the victimhood, but the struggle? And how do we make that the core of our memory? Therefore, we have designed the gathering as a ceremony in which it's a participatory one, emotional and thinking one, in which we start by saying that we were not there. And I'll recite it in a moment for you as a prayer. And then we remember the life that was before death. And people share the name of their communities. And as we don't have in the calendar the days of the communities, suddenly the Holocaust Remembrance Day becomes a spreading out of all the names that come out. And I could ask the people who share now, please come on the chat and share with us the names of the communities from where your families were. My parents are from the Ukraine and from Krakow. And we can see more names coming up and share that as a Jewish map of life. Then we weep and we have the elegy for those who were perished, for those who were murdered. And then everyone light a candle for his family, for those who were murdered, for those who survived, for those who were uprooted from their places because of the post-Holocaust riots and move. And names, personal names come out because we start, as Yakir said, by remembering from our body, from our own story. And once a person is connected to him or herself, he can listen to the story of the other person. Then courageously, we face evil, because evil is there then, but also it's a threat, is an ongoing threat for all of us. And to break this threat, we use one of the forms, the classical forms of resistance, which is sense of humor. And we tell a joke from the time, which is a marvelous joke. And suddenly everybody in the midst of Yom HaShoah bursts in laughter as a body of freedom in order to go into the main chapter, which is in the place where is no man, strive to be a man, a quote from Pirkei Avot, which is the core of the memory. And we started with a very, very moving quote from the writer Aaron Appelfeld, who shared it with us when he came to this group of writers of the gathering and the research. And I quote few words. My reminiscences of the war, of the Second World War, I hope it will not surprise you, are of love, endless love. Anyone who was in the ghetto and saw mothers protecting their children, mothers not eating but feeding their children, young boys staying with their parents, defending them until the last minute, will understand. Asking myself from where do I drive my writing force? I know that not from the horror scenes, but of love scenes, that existed there everywhere. My world was not formed by the executioner. It is not dominated by an irreparable, endless evil. I remained with people and I loved them. And with these words, we then read the words of Mordechai Yanilevich from the ghetto of Warsaw, the commander of the riot. We read words of Etty Hillesum, who believed in God and helped God at the time of Midat Adin. We read about a woman who light candles in Auschwitz, etc., etc. And then we pass into the righteous among the nations, who are also an exemplar of what humankind is. And we don't stop at the war, but think about the day after. How do we start again? And these are our parents, our ancestors, who survived from the Holocaust, who were uprooted from the Arab countries, and how did they have in daily heroism started anew and build their life and commanded us life again. And then we come to the second part of the Hitkansut, of the gathering. Not only the responsibility to remember, but to remember responsibly. How do we honor the Jewish way of remembering by taking it as an active task? It's not Shabbat this time, it's not slavery, it's not the social laws, but maybe something that you, the American community, showed us the way, which is Tikkun Olam. The way that we take ourselves the task to repair whatever we have around us, which is threatening the human face. If we can endow, if we can invest that extraordinary gesture of Tikkun Olam, link it to the memory of the Holocaust, which is not only the victimhood, but in spite and against the victimhood, the taking responsibility of your fate and making, because of that, during the Shoah, guarding your face. And after the Shoah, we, the Jews, take on ourselves the world task of Tikkun Olam, of raising wherever there is a threat. I think that in that sense, we will honor the death, those who died with the hope that a better world will be there. We will honor our ancestors, the survivors who showed us how to choose life. And I think that we will devise, in a way, our Jewish identity here and now in a active way and in a way of responsibility to each one of us in our vicinity. So I was moved while I was speaking to see on the chat names coming up. You can add now to the chat names that you would like to remember. Names of the people from your community, or from your family, of your ancestors, people that you honor, those who perished, those who survived, righteous among the world. And in the rooms, we will share our thoughts. But before we leave, I would like to start a little Hitkansut with you. Imagine that we have just sang together. Maybe we can sing one of the songs of Rabbi Nachman, a happy song, something that puts us together, or Shevet Achim Gam Yachad, something that creates us as a community. And then we ask everyone to read for him or herself, but together in many voices, which I'll start now, and then you'll continue. The invitation for the gathering that starts with these words. We were not there to experience it, to suffer it. And yet, we willingly take upon ourselves the responsibility to remember, and to remember responsibly. And even if I have no words, and you have few, and whether I'm distant or I am near, and whether we are close kin of theirs or whether we can find no kinship, we will be assembling a place within ourselves, among ourselves, a meeting place. We here today. I hope that next year, maybe not in Zoom, and I hope not in Zoom, we will be able not only to have hundreds of circles of gatherings in Israel, in classes, in schools, in communities, in private homes. This year we had hundreds of them. And during the Zoom, we did a gathering, very moving one, with two communities of Keilat Zion with the Rabat Tamar Elad Appelbaum in Jerusalem, and Keilat Beit Tfilah Israeli in Tel Aviv with Rani Yeger, one of the founders, with the association of Dorot HaEmshech of the second and third generation, and with the Zikaron Basalon. And we had, amazingly, more than 10,000 people with us, sharing names like you are doing, sharing communities, sharing thoughts. And I hope that we can share that gathering with Jews and non-Jews. Together, all of us know that we have a legacy. The Shoah, unfortunately, has not been finished at that time. More genocides, more hardships, more facing of the human face are within us today, even while the corona epidemic is with us. If we can have the task to remember and to remember responsibly, maybe a new way for our generation is there to take the legacy of the survivors and to make from that a memory that will linger with us and we will pass from one generation to the other. Devise each circle for their needs, for their context, for their echoes in whatever community it is, in Jerusalem or in Louisiana, in Moscow or in Paris. And I wish us all a memory which will give us hope and strength.
Thank you so much, Michal, for your fascinating and inspiring words. Menachem, you're next. You have also 20 minutes. The stage is yours.
Shalom lekulam. It's in English, yeah, right? First of all, I really apologize. I have no books behind me. I'm in my office. Thank you so much, Michal. It was fascinating to listen to you. I just wanted to give a little short background about myself and then explain why Yair and the ICA asked me to join. I was invited to a roundtable at the Knesset for 2.5 years ago, and the previous member of Knesset, Mike Lauren, asked me, Menachem, what's your connection to this table? And I said, Michael, you should know I immigrated to Israel at the age of 20. So he asked me, oh, sorry, from where? And I said, I immigrated from Mea Shearim. So he said, oh, now you can lead the table. You come from the real diaspora. So when I was, for many years ago, I didn't speak even Hebrew and not mathematics. And that's my feeling. That's why I'm so identified with diaspora. But all of you know that I'm a part of more than 1 million people in Israel. There are more than 1 million people that belong to the Haredi society. And the majority of them, as you know, they have no option to go to the workforce. So it's a long story, but I don't want to dedicate the time just for my story. But I just want to say something, that very, very soon, we are growing very fast. It's a community that we are doubling ourselves each 25 years. And we are growing and growing. That's mean many years, in 2028, 40% of all our first graders in Israel will be members of the Haredi community. And this is really dramatic. So now, if I'm 20, I have two choices. The first one, to stay in the Bet Midrash, studying Torah all day long, that not everyone could stay and sitting learning Torah all day long, and that's I will feel very bad with. Or Or what I will do, I will go to the academic system, and then also I will feel very bad of not to be belong to my community, and also to leave the Bet Midrash. And I will say something also, just for 2 months ago, it was released some surveys that shown that from 100 Haredim who go to the academic system, only 24 stays in the academic system. So if you start in those ages, after 20, it's really, really, really tough. And it's not a solution for the workforce. I'm living in Beitar Illit. Beitar Illit is a very poor city. 60% from the community are under the poverty line. It's very dramatic. Mainly those days, everybody knows exactly what's going on in our community. And if you would like to ask, I would be really happy or not to share with you. But what I want to say, I was really privileged to open academic system in Hebrew University for 2012 that helps already close gaps and then to go to Hebrew University. But unfortunately, many of them dropped out. They couldn't stay in those systems because it's really hard to close gaps in those ages, as I mentioned before. So I decided, and that's why I'm coming to the point, and it's about the Memorial Day. I decided to open a school that combined secular studies and religious, I mean general studies, and in the Haredi community. So as you can imagine, it's not an easy job. Just to convince people who are really, really, they know for many years what is the right thing and what's the bad thing. It's about dichotomic view. But I'm very happy to say there's so many rabbis in the community that understand the need. And I was privileged to open one school for many years ago. And before I started this school, everybody said, Menachem, it's not going to work. Even I can tell you a secret that when I started school and I make an event to expose for the community about the idea, and I made very big event for 150 people, and just 5 came, and 2 of them didn't have even kids. It was very, very sad in the beginning, but now we have a network of schools, and we have 5 schools in Bet Shemesh, Jerusalem, and Beitar, in Bet Shemesh. Elementary school and high school for girls and boys. This is a huge, huge change, and this could really dramatic influence the Israeli society in the coming years. But what is the story? You should understand to have a school and to study English and mathematics is very good, but how I can educate those kids to be solidarity for Israel. They should be a part of Israel. That it comes the Memorial Day, I would like all of them should understand what does mean the Memorial Day. Even we are Haredim and a part of us, we are not serving in the army, but just to ignore, this is not, for 2,000 years ago, Rabbi Akiva, a very famous person, and he had 24,000 students. All of them passed away, they died. Why? Because they didn't respect each other. They fight with each other. And this is a story. Now we have almost 24,000 soldiers since the country was based that passed away. And because why? Because to defend you and to respect you. So it's very dramatic. And I'm not criticizing my community. I have many, many explanations about the fear and about all those kinds of things. But the fact is we need to be one nation. So I come up with an idea and I said, in my school, we will do a Memorial Day. So I would like, if you can, Tali, just show very short movie. It was really viral for 2 years ago. And just give a show and then I will say something about it, okay? Thank you.
צהריים טובים לכולם. אני הולך עכשיו לתת לכם תמונה. אני רוצה שתגידו לי מה התמונה הזאת מעוררת בכם, אוקיי? אני רוצה שתסתכלו טוב, תתבוננו במשך דקה אחת. תסתכלו טוב בתמונה, אני רוצה שתנסו לחשוב מה זה מעורר בכם. האם מישהו רוצה להגיד לי מה התמונה הזאת מעוררת בו באופן אישי? מה הוא מרגיש כשהוא מסתכל בתמונה הזאת? כן, נעתי.
אני מרגיש סוג של רחמים על הילד הזה, וגם אני משתתף איתו בצער, וגם סוג של פחד.
תודה. כן.
שהוא מתגעגע מאוד לאביו.
למה הוא מתגעגע לאבא שלו?
בגלל שאין לו אותו עכשיו, אז סוג של חוסר אונים, הוא לא יודע מה לעשות עם עצמו, הוא פשוט נשכב על הקדר ונרדם.
תנסו לחשוב על ילד קטן שאבא שלו יצא להילחם כדי שהרבה אנשים יוכלו ללמוד תורה, כן? והוא מתעכב, ואמא מנסה להגיד אולי הוא יחזור, ועובר עוד יום ועוד יום, ועדיין לא יודעים, ועד שבא מישהו ובא לבשר להם שהוא נהרג. תנסו לחשוב, להיכנס שנייה לחוויה של הילד הקטן הזה, תנסו לחשוב האם בכלל החוויה הזאת יכולה אי פעם בחייו להשתנות. אני מדבר עכשיו ממקום של רגש עמוק שדיברנו עליו כל הזמן, רגש של הכרה טובה. שיש אנשים שהם עושים את מה שהם עושים מתוך אמונה שהם באים להגן על הארץ הזאת. אנשים שמשלמים מחירים מאוד מאוד כבדים, מבלי להיכנס איפה אנחנו עומדים בזה, אוקיי? אבל זה מאוד מאוד ברור שאי אפשר להתעלם מהמקום הזה.
זה יום מורכב עבור הציבור החרדי ועבור בום.
What I want to share with you is just one story that happened the day after this movie was viral. And this comes back what I said before about our mission as one nation. A day after it was viral, after the Memorial Day, came to me a Hasidic guy. He says, "You Rabbi Bombach?" And I said, "Yes." I was a little bit, it was really enthusiastic. So I didn't know why maybe he wants to. I have some not good friends in some of the communities. So he said, "Listen, I want to talk to you. I want to thank you in my name, in my name of my family. I'm just coming now from Rehovot. Rehovot is about more than 45 minutes to travel to Beitar Illit." And he said, "Listen, I have a grandmother. She's 87 years old. She lives in a kibbutz, and she hates Haredim. She don't like Haredim at all. And you will not believe, but a part of her kids and grandson become Haredi, and for 17 years she have no connection with us. And we try. She's very a special intellectual person, and she don't want any connection with us because she really, really hates us. And we try for so many times to convince her and to give her understand not everybody is the same, and what you see in the media sometimes the edges. It's not really, but she was very tough. And last night, she asked for the whole family to come together. And everybody was really fair, 87 years old, Holocaust survivor. All of a sudden, it was very, very, not an easy moment for the family. They come. And before she starts, she said, "I want to say something, but before, I would like all of you should watch the movie." And she watched this movie, what all of you saw now, watch. And then she said, "I didn't know there is Haredim respect soldiers. I want to really apologize about those years." And it was a reunion moment for the family. And I was saying I can cry again and again about the story. That sometimes you miss so many things. And there is another story about the 91 years also Holocaust survivor, write me an email and said, "Menachem, you should know, I'm almost to the end of my life, but I bless God I'm still alive to see all what you're bringing to Israel. It's not about me. It's about the idea what we can make Israel much other place." You should know there was very famous rabbi. He passed for 25 years ago. His name is the Rabbi Shlomo Zalman Auerbach. Very, very famous rabbi. Even the modern Orthodox knows who Shlomo Zalman because he was really a tolerance person, but very ultra-Orthodox rabbi. And once came a guy to him and said, "Rabbi, I need success in my life. I would like to pray, and maybe I would travel to the tombs of Kivrei Tzadikim, of righteous." So he said, "Wow, why you need to go so far? There is very famous mountain next to us, Har Herzl, the Herzl mountain. You can pray there." And I promise you, you will have a lot of success. It's a very good place to say, to pray. And you know, those stories is not really, you're not going to really find them in the center of our newspapers. Very sad. But also, this is not about that. It's just what I want to say, that we need to remember. And in our community, Baruch Hashem, in my schools, all of our network of schools, we are in the Memorial Day, we are saying Tehillim. And I have to say, a lot of people in the community, maybe that the practice is different. But I have to say, I know so many people now, they're learning Daf Yomi to remember those soldiers. A lot of them are saying Tehillim, each chapter for each soldier with his name. And this is a phenomenon, it comes much more wider and wider. And that's why I really have a hope about those days. And I just want to say, add something else. Maybe you heard about Bambi Shelik, who passed away for many years ago. She was a very famous magazine publisher in Israel. And when I asked her, I worked with her together at Mandel Institute, and I asked her, what will happen in Israel? And she said, listen, just imagine a pizza. A pizza has each slice present a community in Israel. Arab, Israelis, tradition, Orthodox, national Zionist, everybody has a slice. And just imagine the slice. In the center, everybody who is in the center is much more close to each other than the same people who are on the edges. And I think this is our mission. Not to, the edges is gonna stay there. I'm telling you, for all, the edges is there and they're gonna stay forever. And for those 2,000 years, there also was edges. I think the majority, we need to think about the majority, and the majority as tolerance people with love, and we don't need to let those voices that come from the edges to influence us. I think we need to much more focus about the center and to see we can protect ourselves. Everybody has his own identity. You know the story about a lion. It came to the king and said, I want to be married with your daughter. So the king said, okay, it's a good idea, but I think your hair is really big, and I think it's could intimidate the princess. So he said, okay, give me 2 days, and everything will be okay. So he went away, the lion. He come back after 2 days and said, oh, I shaved my hair, and now I'm ready to be married to your daughter. And he said, okay, it's a good idea, but what's about your tooth? It's really dangerous, and if you're gonna have a weak moment, I think it's gonna be terrible. So he said, oh, give me 2 days. He ran away for 2 days, and he comes back without tooth. And then he says, now is the time to be married with your daughter. And the king said, oh, yeah, almost, but your nails is really dangerous. And I'm afraid, please, you should understand, I want to protect my daughter. And said, okay, give me also more 2 days. And that's what he said, he came back with no nails. And then he said, no, now is the time to be married. And the king said, this is a lion. This is what's a lion look like. You look like a broken cat. This is not, I can give up. I mean, if we're gonna forgive or compromise our values, people will not respect us. And I think everybody could stay with their own values, and it comes with respect. And this is a kind of memory, helps to make the memory much more stronger and deeper and closer to each other. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Bombach. This is super powerful, and I want to thank you for behalf of all of us for your holy work of Keruv Levavot. Thank you. I am looking now to see if we have some questions for both of you. So first question is for you, Michal. What do you think that the secular Israeli community needs to do in order to move the Haredi memory to us?
I'll start with a personal story again. My mother, who survived in the camp of Plaszów, where when her son, my brother, was taken, she found herself, she was a a student of law at the Krakow University, a member of the Zionist secular youth movement. And when she was then bereaved, she joined with 9 other women who were ultra-Orthodox, who were educated at the Beis Yaakov school in Krakow. And together, this group of 10 women survived together the camouflage of Auschwitz, Birkenau, the Death March, and Bergen-Belsen, and all the 10 women survived. When I met after the death of my mother many years, those women, it was like meeting my mothers, because my mother survived because of that group of women. And from the beginning, I understood that there isn't a memory of a secular and religious. For me, it's very natural that we have to find the common denominator, which are without erasing the differences. My father, the pioneer, the founder of a kibbutz, comes from a dynasty, Hasidic dynasty in the Ukraine. My grandparents and great-grandparents who came to Jerusalem, I mean, were very close to the pioneers. They were the educators. We come from a family where there were no difference. There was a respect and love of Zion and love of the people as a joint task with many voices. I think that that's why, to write the gathering, I invited an Orthodox rabbi and a specialist of the Orthodox memory, who is working in Bnei Brak with Ganzach Kiddush Hashem, which is the Yad Vashem of the Haredim, and a secular person, and the Yiddish person, and someone from Libya, because I think this is an exemplary day where we all were pushed together without anyone asking us at the concentration camp, where did we come from? The rabbis and the communists were sitting together in the same lager. If we can't find in those national days the fact that combines us, that joins us together, when are we going to do that? I think that we are responsible for opening the hearts, for finding words that will resonate in the ears of one and the other, to be together, which is our strength. And especially when you cross the border and you find someone who is not like you and suddenly you feel close to him or her, I think that we, all of us, find such an excitement of overcoming the prejudices, the stereotypes, and finding the human spark in each of us, and the responsibility of us together.
Thank you very much, Michal. Next question is to you, Rabbi Menachem. One of our participants wants to know, how do the families, the parents of your students, react to the work that you do with the students?
I have to say that it's not easy. In the beginning, it was really hard to convince those parents to come, but now the community understands, many of them, that they need to find something else to go out from the poverty circle. It's a second generation, a third generation, and there are some people they have some responsibility for their kids. And there's also some parents, they understand that their kid is not going to survive the old system. I have a story. I once came to one of the rabbis, very famous rabbi in Israel, and I said, listen, Rabbi, 30% couldn't stay in sitting all day long studying Torah. I say 30% because I'm afraid to say more. Maybe he's going to throw me out from his room. So I said 30%, and the rabbi says, Rabbi Bombach, you should know you cannot work anymore on this mission. Because I would expect from people like you, that you are also academic and education person, you should know the details in the right number 75. That cannot sitting and studying the role thing. So there is a true, everybody understand, and you should understand, in my understanding and real belief, that studying Torah is the most important thing. I believe it. It's a part of my, but the truth is that not everybody can, and more parents has the courage to make some step for their kids. And I hope in the coming years, we will see, even now, the coronavirus make also a lot of changes. Maybe I will write about that. And I think it comes new days. Yeah, comes new days.
Thank you very much. Last question to both of you. The Israeli-American community has moved between the Israeli memory of the Holocaust and the lost soldiers to here, to America. And we carry our own memories from Israel. But our children that are growing up here in the American sphere, even if they speak Hebrew, their experience is very, very different. And we wonder if we can get some advice for you of how we should create our memory and move it forward to the next generation here in America.
Menachem, you want to start?
No. I give you respect.
I think that this is a very crucial question. And I know I have been in the States. I was visiting professor at Rutgers University. So I met with American Jewish and non-Jewish students. And I know that that's a crucial question. The transmission of memory is a transmission of identity. So I think that that's a very crucial question, an open question for every family, for every person who lives. What is my memory? How do I combine my particular memory of a nation, of Jewishness, of a community, of origins from Israel with my American identity? I think it's a huge question. It's a traditional question for Jews for many years. We have now especially two events that really crossed the 20th century that ask that from the beginning. On one hand, there's the Shoah, and on the other hand is the foundation of the State of Israel. It's another question now to be a Jew or any citizen of the world where there is a state for Jews. I think that might be a source of pride, of feeling of security, but also, again, of responsibility. We, as Israelis, are not happy with everything which is now here in the state, and I think that taking on yourself the responsibility to be part of it and make it for the better, not only criticize, but feel that you can do something to make it better, either in your vicinity to mediate or to come over here and experience and share. I think the sharing is the name of the game. And then, as I said before, we have an enormous responsibility for claiming the Jewish tradition, the memory of the Holocaust. I think we cannot stay with the title of victimhood. It's very dangerous because that evokes immediately a competition who is more of a victim. And that is an abyss without an end. And if we remember that we were victims against our will, and that what we learned from that is the bravery of everyone who was there to keep his life and take that as a mission and make that in our daily life a legacy. I think that being a Jew in the 21st century can open a new perspective, and in that sense also link to what I ask myself from Israel, to be Or LaGoyim. I mean, as a state, it's a miracle that we have a state. It's a miracle that our ancestors waited for many, many years, that we fight for every day. But it's a miracle that can stay only if it fulfills its mission. I mean, we have had 2 exiles because we were not up to what the task of being a Jewish nation was. And we have a new task. And we have to ask ourselves, what is our mission to be light for the nations? And I think in that sense, we really need the help of the Jewish American community. We really need you to help us, to have the plurality of voices, to join in many ways that we can better our ways, contribute to our achievements, bring them to the world, mediate them, not in the against anti-Semitism and against calamities that are against us. Be critical, but in a constructive way, I mean, the mission is open there, and I think that each one can do it according to his or her way. And the transmission of memory is maybe the basis of, of enabling it. And that's lacha for everyone.
Thank you, Michal. Menachem, some thoughts?
I think Moshe Rabbeinu, he think about these questions when he started just as a nation, as a leader. And he said, just tell stories for your kids. And that's what we are doing each day. We should not forget to tell stories. And I want to say something, that consciousness is not something that change people. I know people who are really fat, they want to make a diet and they have consciousness. They look at the mirror and they know they want to reduce or lose weight. It doesn't help them because it's about theory. If you want to change, you have to do some practice. And this is, I think, what we need to deliver for the next generation, to give them, even, sometimes people think that if you're Orthodox, if you're Jewish, you're Orthodox or not. I think there is so many practice you can do as a Jew, and even many things, even to do many even small things or bigger things, it doesn't matter. But to do something, this is very important message for the next generation. And how important it is for you, because our generation they want to feel safety. How they feel safety when they have borders. If everything is okay and everybody is legitimate, and everybody, it's because we are pluralism, we want to be liberal, so everything is okay. It's not okay, not everything is okay. No, there is borders. And I think once we show for our kids there is borders, with respect, love, and tolerance, we love each person in the world. But at the same time, we have borders as a Jewish nation. I think this is a very, very important message to hold our identity for the next generation.
Thank you so much. I would like to thank both of you for your inspiring, strong, fascinating teachings and for the food for thought that you shared with our community. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tali. Thank you, Tali, very much.
Okay. We are now moving.
זה ככה אתמול בערב ישבתי, פשוט יתר של אדם.
Someone can so much. Okay. We are now moving to the next session, which is, we call it Community Design Its Own Memory. This session is about you, our participants, and the ways that you design your personal and communal memories. To ensure that you have the opportunity to share, we are now going to divide you into breakout rooms. How is it going to happen? In a minute, each and every one of you will get an invitation on the screen to join a room. Please, and we see it right now, please accept the invitation, join breakout room. Then for 20 minutes, we'll have discussions in small groups about the creation of memories with a facilitator. After 20 minutes, we will come back here and we will move with our next guest, the singer Ivri leader. Enjoy your breakouts and see you in 20 minutes.
the people that are still here, you got something on your screen saying that you should join one of the breakout rooms. Just do accept or join, and then you'll be moved to a breakout room, okay? But you need to press join.
My wife, who's also on here, Emily Adler, is Jewish American, and we raised our daughters here. They're now in their early 20s. So for me, it's been about like how to bring the Israeli point of view into sort of the Jewish American institutions. So the Reform congregations, the different and now we're part of conservative congregation, and it's been for me it's been about personally either bringing things about Israel, events about Israel, remembrances, helping create some of these. Now more and more synagogues are doing the Tekes Ma'avar, the movement from Yom HaZikaron into Yom HaAtzmaut. I'm also involved with more of Holocaust memory, both in terms of creating some documentation and videos about the stories of my parents, both for my children and for in general to have them, but also through an organization called the Wyman Institute, which I volunteer in, which is Holocaust education, very specifically around the American response to the Holocaust. David Wyman wrote a book called The Abandonment of the Jews, which was very famous in explaining the whole the inability of the world to or the unwillingness of the world to do anything to help. So those are the directions that I took it, and I think part of this is to see, how are you doing? What are the memories that are important to you? Either Holocaust or Yom HaZikaron type memories, and how do we bring it effectively to our communities, to our families, to the American Jewish community? So I ask you to unmute if you want to speak, and maybe stay on mute if you're not speaking. And I'd like to turn it over if anybody wants to start. And again, Ivrit or Anglit, whatever you feel more comfortable. Does anyone have anything to say about what we heard, or about how they are dealing with memory in their family, in their community?
I guess I will say a few things. Do you hear me?
Sure.
My name is Avraham Shamir, and my wife here, Elizabeth. We have somewhat different experiences. She is also American Jew, and her memory, and she can add more, comes more from her mother being in kinder transport from Vienna, and that experience. And my memory actually is not related to the Holocaust, since my family came from China. However, interestingly enough, my grandfather, after whom I'm named, and his oldest son were murdered by the Japanese. So we have our own sort of family memory in a different context, but at about the same time. And the Japanese, while horrible, did not kill because they were Jews, but actually because they had Russian identity. So it's fairly ironic. And then my memories continue in Israel through 10 years in the military and being in few wars and getting wounded and so on. So how do I relate all of that to my family? And I agree with what Michal, the rabbi said, through stories. And I always am struggling with the idea of wanting to write down all of this and haven't done it yet. So that's still a mission for me. And then there are memories that can be totally personal that you share with. For example, I do cooking and I have a lot of family recipes that need to be shared. And that's part of memory too. So I'll leave you there.
Anyone else have any stories that they want to share? Lina? Refit?
Yeah. I just want to share a few thoughts. First of all, my grandmother was killed in Israel by a terrorist, and that story was never told. Like that was the opposite of everything we were talking about right now, is that we were never able to really remember her or hold that memory. It was too hard for the family. My grandfather just closed it in a, like literally he just said to the kids, she died and that's it. And I found it amazing that in my generation, I see my cousins, I see myself doing that. I realized that we all have this terrible wound in our hearts because of that. You know, my mother didn't have a mother. She was a different mother because of that. And we all felt that we were missing something in our life. And I felt that need to remember and to honor her and to learn from that for me, for the next generation, for understanding our story as a family. And exactly the fact of like the stories was the strongest thing in that. So I've learned a lot about her, trying as much as I could, but I think that I became very obligated to memory in general. And I found myself in Israel. I was a principal of a junior high school, but it was always hard for me because I didn't bring my story, and I felt always that I'm torn with creating those events, but it's not mine, and I feel uncomfortable, and I have this pain inside that I didn't know how to describe. And then when we moved to the USA, I felt like the only way that I could do it is through sharing the story and through being engaged in everything that I can. So I got involved with creating Zikaron Salon in my area, and being in charge of the ceremony of Yom HaZikaron in San Francisco, and
Hi, everyone. We will wait a few more seconds for all the participants to join us back. We will wait a couple of more seconds so everybody will be back from the breaking rooms. Okay, first of all, I would like to thank Ayelet from Orange County, Dan from New York, Carmel from Orange County, and Golan from LA for being the leaders in our breaking up room. Did a great job. Thank you so much. And now we're moving to the third and last part of this session, and I'm honored to welcome singer, songwriter, and producer Ivry Lider. Hi, Ivry. It's great to have you here.
Hi. Hello, everybody.
His music has been a pillar to the Israeli culture. He holds the Ophir and Akum prizes. He's played a significant part in the continuation of the Israeli music by being a mentor for younger musicians. One way by being the mentor of the TV show The Voice, and before that in the X Factor. We're happy to have you here, Ivry, today.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, and today we want
I'm happy to be.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We would like to speak with you today about two of your projects that focus on memory and identity. In the past year, you wrote a few incredible songs for your mother, Dalia, who was hidden in Poland during the Holocaust as a very young child, pretty much alone in an apartment in Warsaw. We will start by watching one of the songs that you wrote about her, Isha Leviatan, Well Woman, and then we will talk.
All right.
Load.
עדיין חולמת ועדיין רוצה כבר כמה שנים שהיא לא מרוצה ויש לה הסכם עם עצמה תמיד כשנשברת עולה לקחת אוויר ומי זה אמר אישה לוויתן זה דבר לא שביר ואולי החום הוא יעשה את שלו ואולי הכל יגמור אותי ויש בעולם מקומות נפלאים הייתי רוצה להיות שם למצוא את עצמי שוחה חופשייה בעומקים מתאימים לי ולפעמים אישה חזקה לפעמים מתפרקת בלי כוח לדחוף את עצמי מהדחף שלי לשחות על החוף ואולי החום הוא יעשה את שלו ואולי הקור יגמור אותי עכשיו לאט 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 ועדיין חולמת עדיין רוצה וכבר כמה שנים שהיא לא מרוצה ויש לה הסכם עם עצמה תמיד כשנשברת עולה לקחת אוויר ומי זה אמר, אישה לוויתן, זה דבר לא שביר. ואולי החור הוא יעשה את שלו, ואולי הקור יגמור אותי.
Very touching.
Thank you.
Yeah. So if rewriting the lyrics and melody of this and other songs, you have actually created a memory to the story of your own mother, but at the same time, for a whole generation of our parents and grandparents who are Holocaust survivors. Can you share with us how you approached this project, and if you did experience both the personal and the broader in the process of the creation?
Well, I think there are maybe two different ways for second generation to approach the Holocaust stories and memory of the first generation of their parents. And there are also probably two different types of survivors. You know, you have in Israeli culture, you have the guys like Yehuda Poliker and Yaakov Gilad who created Efer Ve'avak. You know, it's a very, very important and beautiful album that deals with Holocaust, with remember, with the stories, with second generation, with everything. And you know, but it's very straightforward. The songs are about the Holocaust. The songs are about the stories of the survivors. My mom, she was the kind of survivor that don't really talk a lot about the story. Like, I knew my mom's story in details, in like really details, only the last, I would say 6-7 years. As a child, I always knew that my mom is a Holocaust survivor. I always knew that my family was murdered there, and I knew her story, like the very, let's say, important or highlights, as if we can describe it as highlights, but like the highlights of the stories, and they of course stuck with me from a very, very young age. You know, I knew she was hidden in a room for 3 years, you know, as a little child. I knew that her father sent her away when she was 3 years old inside a bag of like horse food on this little wagon out of the ghetto. And I knew that she was hidden in this room with a Christian woman for 3 years with nothing, you know, just this one room for 3 years. Like, it's interesting to talk about it now when we all experiencing quarantine, and you know, we are complaining because we can't leave our houses, our comfortable Netflix equipped houses for a month. But she was hidden in this room for 3.5 years as a little girl, and you know, and then the story of being saved and escaping Warsaw, and you know, the hardships that they had to endure, and being adopted by a Christian family, and living for almost a year as a Christian girl, and then her mom who survived finding her one day, you know, in this village somewhere in Poland, and saying, "Hey, I'm here. I'm your mother." And my mom didn't even recognize her. She didn't even. So I knew like small details, but my mom didn't talk about it so much. Like, it's not like we sat on Holocaust Day and watched films and stuff. She didn't want to do that. Like, I think she wanted to maybe get away from it, maybe not dig too deep. She wanted to create the space for herself and for us, I think, from the subject. But that on one hand, but on the other hand, it's always there. I remember as a kid, you know, for me, it was always there. Those thoughts, this room, this wagon, this bag, this travel, this whole thing was always there. And her as someone who went through those things in such a very young age. So I think for me, growing up, it was always a very important and strong thing in my psyche, you know, even as a kid. So, but when I was growing up and I started writing songs about my mom, more about, you know, I think you can find little stories from her story, or little ideas, or even like imaginations that I had, that she didn't even tell me, maybe, you know, like stuff that I invented in my head that she experienced, or little stories about this kid who's alone, you know, there, and also the idea of that you played Well Woman, Isha Leviathan, which it's just the idea that someone can be so strong, you know, because my mom, she's a very, very strong woman. And, you know, after the war, they went to Argentina and she lived there, and she was a big Zionist. And, you know, she moved to Israel without her parents when she was 20, to a kibbutz, and started, you know, working the fields immediately. And, you know, they were really Zionist and, you know, building this country. And she was a very, very strong woman. But under that, there's always this undercurrent of frailty and like of being so fragile that you feel under. And, you know, and so the imagery of a whale being such a beautiful, big, strong animal. But I loved whales when I was a kid. Like I had this book with a lot of different whales, and I loved the biggest one, the blue one. But I always thought like it's you know, it's not the orca. It doesn't have teeth, and it's not like he's not eating meat. He's like he's he's very gentle in a way. So and almost fragile in his like behavior. And I think that's how I saw my mom, you know, as a kid, because I saw her as my mom. And, you know, and our parents are at the beginning, they're gods, and then they're the strongest people on earth, and they're human, you know, and that's how we see them. And I think, but from a very young age, I knew that under this strength, there's a very big wound, and something is very, very fragile and hurt under this, you know, it's not actual strength. So so when I like started writing songs about the story and my mom and her story, I think all this idea was always floating around in my conscience, and maybe also in my subconscious. You know, I think I probably got so many details subconsciously through her over those years, you know.
Thank you, Ivry, for sharing
Sure.
your thought process around this project. I wonder if you get reactions from other survivors or families of other survivors. These songs are so personal, but I also
yeah. Well, I think it's interesting because I think because they're written in a way that's not very like, okay, this is the Holocaust, this is how it happened. So I think people who have experienced hurt and who have experienced those kind of like hard things that happen to them in their lives, they can really immediately recognize it, you know, recognize those places. So I got a lot of reactions, of course, from second generation people, third generation also, I think, although that's probably a little bit of a different psychology, but still. And in Israel, it's very, very strong, you know, like from a very young age, you're dealing with the Holocaust. It's very evident. And but yeah, I think, you know, something amazing that happened to us is when I was, I think, like, what was it? It was 3 years ago. It was the first time that my mom said she can go back to Poland. So 68 years after she left, we took this trip. My mom, my brother Amiel, who lives in New York, and my sister Raya, who lives in Tel Aviv, and myself. We went to Poland to walk that path, you know, to see those places together with her, to see Warsaw, to see where she was, to see where they lived before the war, a little bit where she was, think she was hidden. You know, it's very hard to know exactly, but you know, and we kind of followed the story, and we had this trip. And then when we came back, I did this article in Yediot Achronot and Ynet. And then a few months, and then when the article was published, a few months after the trip, I suddenly got this email from this man saying, we are family, like your mother's story is my family story. And I never had family, you know. This one thing about being a Holocaust second generation is like, we were always the tiniest family. Like, we never had, you know, my mom was, of course, an only child, and her father was killed in the Holocaust, was murdered, and her mother survived but died after. She didn't make it to Israel, and my father was also an only child, so we never had this like big family thing, you know. I never had the privilege of saying uncle, like my uncle or my aunt, or you know. So suddenly this man reaches out to me and saying, like, we're family. Your father, your mother's father is the brother of my father. So this is like, it's really close family, and it's amazing. And you know, and they live here like 15 minutes from me, and they were always here. It's crazy. So it got us all together, and now we're in contact, and it's like a family. And like, but it's wonderful to get reactions from people who say, yeah, I went through more or less different, more or less like same things, and I can really relate, and I understand what you're singing about, and I understand what you're talking about. And I think a lot of second generation people, it's amazing, but you actually share those things. It's crazy. Like when I met this guy, Oli, who's my family now, but when we discussed it, it's like, without knowing, or without, you know, coming from the same place, we share so many similar experiences with our parents.
Thank you, Ivri. It hits a nerve.
Yeah.
Who has anything to do, and even who doesn't.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it becomes a collective memory, I believe, for all
for
of us.
Sure, for sure. I think you know, for all of us, you know, who were brought up as Jews, you know, like it's a collective understanding, you know, that this is probably why it's almost like, it's probably very important to keep talking about this, and to keep, you know, bringing up those stories and the psychology, because it's collective. It's like, even if you're not, you know, first person or second generation, third generation, even if it's not in your family, I think you're still part of a collective that is very influenced by what happened.
Yes, thank you. It feels that we can talk about these songs and topics for another hour, but we need to move first
Sure.
to the second project that we want to discuss with you. This year you wrote together with Chagai Uven a song for the memory of two soldiers who lost their lives in the old city of Jerusalem.
Right.
You sing it with the singer Nasrin Kadri.
Yeah.
Let's watch the song, מהכפר לכיכר,
right.
and then we'll talk more.
أنا خاف عليك يا ولدي، أنا خاف عليك من بلادي، هذا اللي بيفارقنا في الدنيا. קוראים לי אח, חבר לקרב, קוראים אהוב בכל מצב, קוראים לי לעמוד איתכם באבל. הקול שלי נסער מהכפר אל הכיכר, לדמוענה בנסיכבו בלנהר. תקראו לי כששרים, כשכואבים את הנופלים, גם לי יש מקום בחלקה של אלוהים. הקיר עומד שם ושותק, הלב עמוק בפנים צועק, אנא מקום, אנא מקום. احكوا معي بالعربي، غنوا شوي لوجعي، ما ممكن ولا حدا يبعدنا. אל מול שאר השבטים, חומת מגן על החיים, שפה אחת, צדדים שונים בינינו. הקול שלי נסער מהכפר אל הכיכר, לדמוענה בנסיכבו בלנהר. תקראו לי כששרים, כשכואבים את הנופלים, גם לי יש מקום בחלקה של אלוהים. הקיר עומד שם ושותק, הלב עמוק בפנים צועק, אנא מקום, אנא הקול שלי נסער מהכפר אל הכיכר, לדמוענה בנסיכבו בלנהר. תקראו לי כששרים, כשכואבים את הנופלים, גם לי יש מקום בחלקה של אלוהים. הקיר עומד שם ושותק, הלב עמוק בפנים צועק, אנא מקום,
Well, it's hard to stay indifferent to this song. Either this song gives stage to a different voice or shade of the central Israeli voice that represents loss. Can you share with us what initiated the creation of this project?
Well, they approached us to write a song for Yom HaZikaron, and I thought it's touching the Druze people who serve in the army and police in Israel, and dying while doing that needs stage, and it's very, very important because I thought that doing Yom HaZikaron, the Memorial Day, it's very important that they will have a song, you know, like the songs are such a symbol in here, you know, in all every ceremony in high schools, on television, and the big square when we can. You know, it's a very big thing, right? And we always go and we sing songs. And we always sing songs in Hebrew, and we always sing songs about our soldiers. And it's very important that we remember that some of the soldiers who die, or policemen who die while protecting Israelis and Israel and Jewish people, are not speaking Hebrew. Is not their first language, and they're not Jewish, and it's very, very important to remember. And they are such a loving and fundamental part of our society and of what makes us Israel and who we are. And it's so important, you know. Like, I think these days when I look at the world, I see a flooding wave of nationalism washing us wherever you look, instead of like opening borders and growing together. I think we see kind of like the opposite in the last few years. Not just here, you know, and anywhere, almost anywhere you look. And I think it's super important in Israel to remember that, of course, it's Israel, and it's a Jewish country, and if you know, we just talked about the Holocaust, so of course it's got such a big part in why Israel even exists, and the purpose of Israel, and you know, it's all, of course, very important, and it's something that we know very, very well. But in my eyes, it was very, very important to have this song who can represent part of our community and part of our society that is so devoted. And these guys, you know, when I started the project, I didn't even know, you know, like, I went to meet the families, and I went to meet the unit where they come from, which is a unit inside, like right next to the Kotel. And it's a unit made of, half of them are Druze and Arabs and Israeli Arabs, and half of them are like Jews and also religious Jews, and they're all served together. And you know, and when this guy came to kill Jews, or kill, you know, this terror attack happened, he didn't know, you know, like, you know, like, their first language is Arabic, like his, you know. It's like he didn't know, you know, because when you don't check the papers, it's all human beings, right? Like, they look the same. And he killed them, you know, and they were killed while protecting people who were praying at the Kotel. And so we felt like it's super important to have one song for them in this whole Memorial Day joint community Israeli kind of thing. Like, they have to be sang, they have to be remembered, and they have to get a place of honor in what we do. And those ceremonies are a big part of what we do as a society here.
Thank you so much, Ivry, for participating today and for sharing with
Sure.
our community some of the backstage stories of your creation.
Sure, thank you guys.
Our Israeli American community deals with connecting different pieces of identity as well, and the examples that you gave us are an inspiration. So thank you for that.
Of course, my pleasure.
Okay. So we are reaching the end of our session today. I want to thank you all for being with us and for taking in all of these beautiful, amazing teachings from our speakers. Please stay healthy and safe wherever you are. And Yakir, the final words will be yours.
Thank you so much. Thank you for Tali Kord Galai for being our moderator, to Professor Michal Govrin, to Rabbi Menachem Bombach, to you, Ivri Leader, and to our amazing community leaders of Gvanim who led the breakout rooms. I just want to mention that you are more than welcome to join us to many events of Zochrim Umesaprim, Tekes Yom HaZikaron, Erev Shirei Lochamim, Besharim Atzmaut. We have in these unique days many events for you. You can find all of them on the iac.home.net. And last, on the 10th of May, we are going to have Gvanim Limud Festival for Yom Ha'atzmaut, we will call Ha'inu Kecholmim. Toda Rabba to each one of you. Be safe and have a beautiful day. Toda.